Eventually, everyone asks the same question. So, are you seeing anyone? The single person smiles, says no, and somehow the room assumes that means waiting, healing, or fear. It usually means none of those. It means they've done the math. They know what a relationship can start asking for: tone checks, mood management, constant translation. And they know what peace feels like now. Once someone has felt that kind of peace, they stop giving it away cheaply. That is the psychology of people who choose to stay single, and it's not what you think. The first thing most people miss is how normal their alone time feels. Not lonely, normal. Saturday morning with no one waiting on a reply, no one reading your face before you've even had coffee, no one asking what's wrong when nothing is wrong. Your face is just your face. You make breakfast the way you like it. You sit where you want. You leave the room, and nobody's mood follows you. That's the part people don't understand. They think single life is a gap waiting to be filled. For some people, it stopped feeling like a gap a long time ago. It started feeling like a room with the volume turned down, a room where your thoughts can finally finish themselves, a room where you do not have to become a slightly edited version of yourself just to keep the air calm. That doesn't mean you hate people. It means you've lived enough life to know that not every connection adds space. Some connections consume it. You usually learn this the hard way. It never starts with a dramatic breakup. It starts with tiny adjustments that look harmless from the outside. A friend gets into a relationship and slowly their voice changes. Their jokes change. Their opinions get softer. They begin checking someone else's face before they finish a sentence. A plan gets moved because someone is in a bad mood. A shirt gets changed because the other person doesn't like it. A whole personality gets trimmed down, one small compromise at a time, until nobody calls it disappearing because it happened slowly enough to look normal. You see it in restaurants, in parked cars, in group chats, in the way people stop sounding like themselves when they are trying to keep someone else comfortable. You see a person who used to be sharp suddenly become careful. You see somebody who once had opinions turn into somebody who just wants things to be fine. And fine, over time, becomes a very expensive word. That's why some people stop rushing into relationships. They have already watched what it costs to stay in one that requires them to keep shrinking. They know the invisible labor: checking moods, adjusting tone, deciding what version of themselves is safe for today. That kind of work is never listed on the relationship brochure, but it is always there. Modern dating makes all of that louder. The app, the first message, the small talk that feels like a screen test. The first date where both people are trying to look relaxed while quietly wondering if the other one will become work. The second date where you start noticing patterns before they become habits. How they talk about their ex, how they handle delay, how they react when something does not go their way, how quickly they need reassurance, how often they need to be managed. You can be sitting across from someone perfectly decent and still feel the truth of it in your body. This is manageable. Not exciting, not expansive, just manageable. And manageable is not enough when you already know what peace costs. That is the part people misunderstand about being single by choice. It is not always about wanting less. Sometimes it is about refusing to pay too much for maybe. It is about not calling a half-fit a destiny just because the app made it easy to meet them. You have probably had that moment where a date gets canceled, and instead of disappointment, you feel a tiny exhale you did not plan to admit to yourself. You make dinner, you put on a show, you sit back in your own space and feel more like yourself than you did 2 hours earlier while trying to be impressive. That relief is not cruelty, it is information. The body tells the truth faster than the mouth does. And still, this does not mean you have become cold. That is the other mistake people make. They hear single by choice and assume the person has gone numb to connection. Usually the opposite is true. They miss the idea of it. They think about the version of connection that has never happened yet. The one where somebody gets their rhythms, their silences, their jokes, their strange little habits, without forcing them to translate themselves into something easier to digest. That version matters. It is real enough to want. But it is also very good at protecting itself from disappointment. An ideal person can never turn careless. An ideal person never becomes a burden halfway through. An ideal person never looks at you one day and quietly expects you to disappear a little so they can stay comfortable. Real people do that sometimes, not because they are villains, because they are human. And once you have seen enough of that, your standards stop being romantic and start being exact. There's an old story about Diogenes, the philosopher who gave up comfort, status, and every polite performance that came with them. When Alexander the Great offered him anything he wanted, Diogenes is said to have asked him to step out of his sunlight. It was not a joke, it was a statement. Some people would rather keep their freedom than accept a life that looks impressive, but costs them their own air. That is what a lot of people who choose to stay single are really doing. They are refusing to call a smaller life a shared life. They are refusing to confuse being wanted with being well matched. They are refusing to let someone's presence become a permanent tax on their nervous system. There is also a harder truth underneath all of this. Some people stay single because they are disciplined. Others stay single because they are scared of the version of themselves that shows up in the wrong relationship. The one who explains too much, the one who stays too long, the one who tries to rescue something that should have been left alone, the one who wakes up one day and realizes they have been edited, not by force, but by 1,000 small concessions that added up quietly. If you have lived that, you do not forget it. Leaving feels like getting your own name back. So after that, you become careful. Sometimes too careful. Sometimes you exit before you need to. Sometimes a person gets close enough that staying feels more vulnerable than leaving, and you choose the cleaner exit just to protect the version of yourself you finally manage to recover. That is not always a flaw. It is often a reflex. But it is worth noticing because the same awareness that protects you from the wrong relationship can also misread real connection as a threat. It can confuse challenge with danger. It can mistake somebody seeing you clearly for somebody trying to control you. That is where the real psychology lives, not in fear of love, in fear of losing your shape inside it. Here's what is actually true about the people who choose to stay single. They usually know themselves better than people assume. They know what their days feel like when nobody is performing at them. They know what they prefer when nobody is trying to steer them. They know the difference between loneliness and peace. They know the difference between attention and care. They know how quickly a relationship can go from beautiful to expensive. That is not a consolation prize. That is a form of clarity most people never get because they do not stay alone long enough to hear their own life without interference. So no, they are not waiting for life to begin. They are already in it. They are just unwilling to trade their peace for a relationship that only looks like love from a distance. And if one day someone enters their world and the math changes, not because they are lonely, not because they are bored, but because this person actually expands the room, they will know. They will not confuse noise for connection. They will not confuse being wanted for being understood. They will not confuse manageable for right. That is why they stay single, not because nobody came along, because they finally understood what it costs to let the wrong person stay.